Welcome to this week's Foundation Friday with the Cincinnati Nature Center. I am joined today by Jeff Corney, Executive Director at the Center, and Scott Thacker, CEO of Ivory Consulting. Thank you for joining me, guys.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, a pleasure to be here.
No, absolutely. And Jeff, met Bill Hopple a few weeks back when we were in Cincinnati doing an EFC event. So it's a pleasure meeting you. Do you mind just kind of taking a few minutes and introducing the Cincinnati Nature Center?
Yeah, my pleasure. Cincinnati Nature Center, we're touted as the largest privately owned nature center in the country. We've been around since 1967, so our 55th year. We have approximately 1,800 acres of land between two properties here in Claremont County, which is just east of Cincinnati. Largest meaning we have over 17,000 household members. We don't have an exact count, but we believe that's about 60,000 individuals from the greater Cincy area are members, and very devoted members at that. We also have a fairly sizable staff for a nature center, 120 strong, and growing, it seems. And we have very healthy visitorship. We have approximately 300,000 visitors come through our gates per year. And we provide a variety of different events and activities for folks. But at the core, it's the 20 miles of trails between our two properties that folks come to see, especially for Ohio topography, which typically is on the flattish side. We offer some of the most spectacular hiking experiences in the area. We have, amongst those 20 miles of trail, we have a lot of elevation differential, very commonly climbing in and out of 200-foot valleys and ridges. Very often we have folks come to run first thing in the morning. We have folks that will actually don backpacks, full backpacks and hiking boots, getting themselves prepared for trips out west to the big mountains, and they come to our site. It's gorgeous. You hike through a variety of different terrains and topographies. We have old growth forest. We have restored prairie areas. We have wetlands. We have a beautiful river that runs through both properties. And all of these relatively pristine. And we manage them. We of course have to fight back invasive species and whatnot, but it's some of the nicest natural areas in the area. Which of course attracts a lot of wildlife. So we have a lot of folks that come out for wildlife viewing and just to come out and experience nature. Given that mileage, you can get a good mile or so away from the visitor center area where there's very few hikers and very few cars, if any, and just get some peace and quiet too. So folks come out for that too.
What is the most unique wildlife that you've seen at your time there?
Well, a favorite that's unique mainly because they're not as common to see is mink. We have mink on the property, which is kind of for folks out west, that's a little more like a ferret looking animal. They're around, but they're very elusive and often hard to see. And we have a family of them living near the visitor center in a brush pile where folks observe birds. So it's kind of a popular one to come out and see.
Well, perfect. Well, thank you for sharing that and giving us that background there. So Scott, how did you happen to get involved with the Nature Center?
Well, Jesse, thanks for asking. It's a bit of a touching story. My family grew up near the Cincinnati Nature Center, and when my brother was in high school, he struggled quite a bit because he was dyslexic. And so my mother would pick him up from school, and they would go to the Cincinnati Nature Center. And they would walk through the trails, and it was very calming for him after a hard day of attempting to learn being dyslexic.
Man.
And often they would sit on a bench and she would read his lessons for the next day. So unfortunately both my brother and my mother have passed, and so a few years ago I wanted to create a memorial in their honor at the Cincinnati Nature Center because it was so impactful to my brother. And I happened to be good friends with the then executive director, Jeff's predecessor, Bill Hopple. And so Bill facilitated the way to do that. And I invited all of my family from Ohio and Indiana, and we spent one Saturday morning walking the trails. And it turns out my mother's favorite tree is a dogwood, and so I wanted to have a memorial dogwood tree. And we almost got to the end of the path, and no tree spoke to me. It just didn't make any sense to pick a tree. And so my cousin and I sat down on a bench, and we looked straight ahead of us, and what we saw directly in our view was two dogwood trees coming from the same root ball, and they had grown together. And then it just suddenly hit me, oh, I don't need to have one memorial tree. I need two memorial trees, one for my mother and one for my brother. And so it became so poignant at that moment. And of course, Bill loved it because that meant two memorials instead of one, and more money for the Cincinnati Nature Center. But ever since then, I've been going. Whenever I go home to Ohio, I gather my relatives, and we make sure that we go out to the center and also check in with Bill and see how he's doing. So I've kept the Cincinnati Nature Center very warm in my heart, and I hope others will find ways to increase their enjoyment by being part of the center.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that story, Scott. That's interesting, especially the one root ball that too. I mean, what are the odds of that whole thing coming together there? Jeff, so when people,
yeah, exactly, right. Yes, it was the universe was talking to us.
Right. That's right.
So when people make a donation to the center, like where do those donated dollars go?
It depends. We have another thing we're very proud of is we have what I call a very diverse portfolio of events, activities, and things that we do. Often, we will offer to a potential donor a portfolio of what might you be interested in. So popular ones, of course, are education programs, ranging for programs for little kids we have an excellent program called Earth Kids that helps economically challenged families and school districts for that matter. So it helps us get the funding to not just fund the children and teachers, but the buses to come, out of the city, out to the country and join us. So those are very popular programs. We also have a very robust land stewardship conservation program, ranging everywhere from, tackling invasive species to forestry management, native plant propagation. We have a full nursery operation at our Long Branch facility with not just native plants, but they're what we call native cultivars, meaning the seed stock is from the greater Cincinnati area. Makes for very robust plants and plants that we then sell to folks that want to perhaps change the nature of their yards. We've also done restoration work on larger areas, cropland, large acreage, where we will use a seed drill and put in vast amounts of native prairie seed and then prescribe burn that field. We've done this for corporations. As a matter of fact, Procter & Gamble, their branch out in Mason is one of our customers, which we restored a prairie area outside their parking lot area. Often once a building is put in, there's lots of green space, but usually a developer will throw in, some kind of like a switchgrass or some kind of a, maybe Kentucky bluegrass, which is fine, but not necessarily aesthetically pleasing, and certainly a lot of facilities work. We come in and we will overseed that with native plants, which of course grow beautiful forbs, yellows and purples, and not to mention allow the company to make a statement about moving in a greener direction.
Thank you for sharing that. And then Scott, kind of like my final question I have here is, when people are watching this in equipment finance, what can they do to make a difference to the center?
Well, Jesse, as you know, there are a lot of equipment finance businesses in the greater Cincinnati area. And if you look at all of Ohio and into Kentucky and Indiana, so many of us. And I would love for as many people as possible to go to the Cincinnati Nature Center, enjoy it, enjoy their trails, and buy membership or attend the annual fundraising gala, which I've done a few times. Always a great time. And even around the holidays, they have beautiful holiday displays, and you could go there and get some Christmas gifts. So There's so many different ways you can enjoy the center, and I would just hope that everybody in the area, in the tri-state area, can find a time to go out and learn about the topography and to Jeff's point, the indigenous species of Southern Ohio.
Aside from sponsorships that we often ask corporations for some of our major events, we're opening up quite a number of new initiatives for corporations to engage with the Nature Center in ways that perhaps they were unaware of. Most basic is we're now offering discounts for memberships that we provide usually through the HR department as a health and wellness initiative to offer for your employees, which has become quite popular these days. We also have venues available for retreats, both here at the historic Krippendorf and at our Grossbeck lodges. And we'll also provide sort of a la carte some programming. It's quite popular to want to bring in some of our naturalists and go for some hikes in the woods and learn a little bit about nature and just kind of relax while you're here to have a retreat. We also certainly love to have group volunteers come out, usually from a corporate group that would like a day off in the woods and help us with something like a trail maintenance program or whatnot. Get some exercise and just get out into the woods and enjoy it, so to speak. So just a variety of ways that we're finding our local corporations are engaging with the Nature Center, and we're reaching out and saying, please come, you're welcome. Please enjoy this beautiful natural area that we have. Relax, and go back to your offices, and hopefully with a little more kick in your step and a little more productivity.
Well, Jeff, that rings a couple of bells for me. So you mentioned earlier about the greening of the corporate space using Cincinnati Nature's advice, and now you're talking about these wellness programs. You probably don't know, but I think Jesse does, that the Equipment Leasing and Finance Foundation just released a study on how our finance companies, our member companies, can be more focused on ESG and how they can utilize various ways of becoming more environmentally conscious in their ESG efforts. And you just gave us two examples right there. So kudos to the Cincinnati Nature Center for bringing those to light.
Thank you.
That's a great idea. And what better way for team building than to get out and do something fun, Hopefully, as long as the weather cooperates, right? I mean, but I guess that could be even more entertaining.
We can't
guarantee everything.
Well, at least it's easy to get a pair of rain boots.
Yeah,
that's fair. I mean, it makes it more entertaining too if it's a little slippery. But
actually, yeah, sometimes if it's just a little drizzle, it makes for a little more drama, a little more fun. Actually, the truth be told, I've gone on some of these hikes. Matter of fact, we had, I want to say it was a group from Duke Energy was here, and it was a little chilly, but a little muddy. And the truth is, the little kid in all of us came out in that group. I think they had a lot of fun, just kind of mucking about, away from the office and the pressures of that, and just unwind for a little bit. And I thought it was wisely placed because they had us do this early in the retreat session. And I'm pretty certain when they went back into session, they were eager and ready to kind of dig right in because they kind of, like I said, had a kick in their step.
Thank you for sharing that example. It's definitely a good way to break some ice or whatever else with teammates, that's for sure. All right, Jeff, and thanks, Scott, again for your time today. I look forward to seeing the Nature Center next time I'm out there. Scott, looks like another road trip, maybe?
Yeah, more than welcome.
Yeah, let's plan it.
Yeah, just let me know. I'll be happy to host you here.
Okay. Sounds great, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you both.
Thank you, John.